everybody, welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be a little bit of a different video, but you guys said that you wanted me to kind of like change up my content and start doing things that are more relevant to sort of like my day-to-day life behind the scenes. Now I'm not really studying at the moment, and a lot of you have been asking for videos about how to get into journalism, what to sort of do if you're interested in journalism, etc, etc. And I just want to say, you know, I'm not a journalist yet. Like, I have not fully broken into the career. I don't know if I will manage to do that successfully, but I am interested in the field, and that is kind of where my energies are concentrated. So I thought I would do a few videos about things that I've kind of picked up, advice that I've learned and I've found useful, like sort of starting out and when I've been working on the student paper and everything, just so that you guys have got like, I don't know, maybe like some advice on how to like really get started, because I know when I was looking into like how to start, I honestly had no clue what to do. So yeah, today's video is going to be one that's actually relevant to sort of like more people than just people that want to be journalists, because we obviously live in such a crazy world where so much is going on all the time, and it can feel really like it's impossible to stay in the loop. There's just constant news breaking, there's constant things that you feel like you need to know. So this video is going to be about how to stay informed, how to kind of like keep on top of the news, how to make sure that you don't get overwhelmed with how much is happening in the world, because I know that I really struggle with that. I feel like I look away from the news for like 1 second and so much has happened, and it can be really like stressful and exhausting. And this video is basically just some tips and tricks that I have found useful to sort of combat that, but also stay in the know all the time. So this video is going to be just how to keep up with rolling headlines, but I wanted to say before that you don't need to know everything about everything, and it's really worth your while delving into things that you find more interesting in sort of like a deeper way, so that you can get perspective on current events that are happening. Like, you don't need to be an expert on every single piece of world affairs. If you're really interested in American history, for example, then read about American history. If you're interested about the Middle East, read about the Middle East. And I think that that's a really good way to compartmentalize your sort of deeper knowledge from the headlines, like the quick events that are happening day to day. I know that it can feel really overwhelming to like find books to read and find ways to sort of deepen your knowledge, and that is where Blinkist comes in. So Blinkist works on your phone, on your tablet and on your laptop, and what it basically does is it gives you the key takeaways, like the key need to know information from over 3,000 books in 27 different categories, like non-fiction books. So what Blinkist does is it categorizes books, and then it breaks them down into what they call blinks, which you can either read or listen to in under 15 minutes, and it tells you everything that you need to know before you take the plunge and buy a book. So over 14 million people use Blinkist, and it has lots of different categories that you can use to sort of expand your mind, as I said, depending on what you're interested in. So whether that be sort of self-growth or business or politics or history, they have something for you on there for sure. So with your membership now, you get access to the full Blinkist library, but you can also delve into deeper, sort of like longer form audiobooks at a special discounted price if you're a member. I really like this because obviously when you're really busy and you're just constantly going from like A to B to Z, like wherever, I find it really nice to be able to know what the kind of key takeaways from a book are before I decide to pick it up and read it, because I think for me, like, because I have such limited time, I want to know that me cashing out on a book is going to be worth my while and my money. Even if you don't sort of like buy the book in the end, you've still got the key takeaways from it, and you can like apply those in your life, and they're good to use when you're like working out or like cleaning your room or whatever, so you can multitask as well. So I'm currently listening to The Blink for Becoming by Michelle Obama, because I've really been interested in American politics and American history at the moment, and I want to see if that is a book that I want to read. And then once I've finished that one, I'm going to read The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson, because I think that that's something that I personally need to know in my life, because I very much struggle with that. So Blinkist have actually set me up with a really amazing deal for you guys. If you go to blinkist.com/Eve Bennett, which I'll put on the screen, you can get 25% off premium membership after your 7-day free trial, and you can also get 65% off audiobooks, which are yours to keep forever. So if you're interested, then of course I will put all of the information you need down in the description box below. So regardless of what your sort of personal areas of interest are, it is very good to be able to try and stay informed generally about the key... why do I always kick my tripod? I just can't sit still. To be generally informed about key events that are going on in the globe, just because if you want to be a journalist, obviously you need to keep your finger on the pulse, because if you're going to start working in a newsroom, then breaking news is going to be what you're doing. Obviously when you're a student journalist, you tend to just write articles on things that interest you, less so on breaking news unless you're on the news team, but it is very good to be able to react quickly to news and find your news quickly. But also at the same time, checking the news constantly all day every day is just really bad for your mental health. It's going to really stress you out, and I would not recommend it at all. Unless it's literally your job, where your job is to sit and check the news all day. You've got other things to be doing, and you sort of constantly being stressed about everything that's going on in the world is going to stop you from being productive in other ways. So I would really recommend getting into the habit of checking your news at like set intervals during the day, so that you're not constantly on it. So for me personally, I will scroll through the news first thing when I wake up. I'll have a look at a couple of news sites kind of when I'm eating my lunch, around lunchtime, and then sort of like mid to late evening I'll have another browse to see if I've missed anything else, but I won't check it just before bed, and I won't be checking it all day. With this, I would also recommend varying your sources where you're getting your news from. So don't just get your news from one place, because then you're not really seeing the full picture. I personally have like a lot of different sources that I will check. Not all the time. I don't check every single one every day. So your baseline for sort of checking the news will be the BBC, but obviously you want to be checking other sources as well, because whilst the BBC gives you the key takeaways, you know, it's nice to see like analysis of the news a little bit more, which BBC doesn't really give you that much personally, in my opinion. So I also really like The Guardian, I also like The Times, and The Times you do have to pay for, but if you're a student it's only £26 a year, which is actually really cheap for a newspaper subscription. I'm also subscribed to The Economist just because I really like sort of listening to stories. That's not one that I check sort of for like news in the morning. I check their daily briefing, but I don't check it for like news articles in the morning. But I do really like The Economist, and I'm also subscribed to The New Yorker, but again that's more for like just reading articles rather than checking headlines. So like there's kind of a difference between checking the headlines, so like seeing, you know, what the top 10 stories are this morning, and that's more like the Times and, you know, newspapers, whereas places like The Economist, that's a magazine. I am subscribed to the magazine as well, but that's more for like analysis of current events. So that's not telling you the event has happened, it's more just like analysing the event and its ramifications. I would also really suggest that you use Twitter as a tool, but I will put a massive caveat on that by saying that Twitter is great for finding out things as they're happening, but also you need to be really careful where you're getting your information on Twitter. Sometimes things can come out as like alleged rumours and stuff, and unless you're careful and you're checking again, you know, that could like not actually be true. I'm not saying don't use Twitter, because a lot of breaking news stories these days come from videos and stuff on social media, which we've seen recently obviously, but just quadruple check before you retweet anything or like comment on anything that you're 100% sure that this is actually true, or it says that it's, you know, alleged or something like that. So, you know, you've got that sort of perspective on whether that is actually news or not. The beautiful thing about Twitter as well is that you can really tailor your feed. I know that at sort of the BBC you can tailor your feed to like my news, but also I find that Twitter is really good because I follow a lot of people that report on American politics, and a lot of people that report on Latin American politics, and a lot of people that report on UK politics, which are kind of the three areas that I personally feel like I'm most interested in. And I also follow sort of all of the like editors of the big newspapers, because when something big happens, like Laura Koonsberg or Beth Rigby, or I don't know, I'm trying to think of other people that tweet, but all of the political editors, all the different newspapers will be the first to tweet when press conferences are going on and stuff, so it's very good to follow those live. And you can also follow lots of student journalists on there as well, which is nice, and you can see all your friends' work too. So Twitter is really good, but again, I would really suggest, I personally have a separate account for news on Twitter, so that I have my personal Twitter feed and then I have my news Twitter feed, because it can be really dangerous scrolling through your news Twitter feed 24/7, because that would just be incredibly overwhelming and depressing. So as a little side caveat to sort of keeping up with headlines, if you're like me and you like to know more about events, then I would really recommend subscribing to a weekly magazine. They can be quite expensive, but you can get deals. So I got like The Economist 12 weeks for £12, and I also got The New Yorker for 12 weeks for £12. The Guardian weekly is quite expensive. It's like £37.50 per quarter, so that comes to like a fair amount of money. I subscribed to 3, but this is the only one that I pay full price for. I really like the Guardian Weekly because it does just give you like hand-picked stories from around the world each week that I can sit and just read in one sitting, and I usually tend to read like maybe about 80% of it because it has spotlights on things that I really want to read about, and it also gives me ideas for things that I could look into further, perhaps to write my own stories on. So this is the Guardian Weekly. I have lots of these, but this is The Economist as well. I also really like The Economist. It is a business magazine. Do I actually read the business section? Not so much, because honestly I don't really know that much about the economy, and I feel like it's probably not going to be my area of specialism. But it also has a section for each continent each week. It has a political briefing each week, and the leaders, like the articles at the start, are always really good to give you an insight into an issue that you might not know that much about. And I'm also subscribed to The New Yorker. I am going to get rid of the magazine subscriptions, by the way, for The Economist and for The New Yorker soon, because I'm going abroad, and you can just get a digital subscription where you just have access to reading the articles, which are all the same articles that you get in the magazine, just, you know, on the website. Because I am going abroad, I can access these two on the website, whereas I can't access the Guardian Weekly on like the website. That's the whole point of the Guardian Weekly, is that it's like curated into a magazine. So I'm going to keep the Guardian Weekly, but I'm just going to revert back down to the cheaper digital subscriptions. But while I've been in lockdown, I've been really enjoying reading these, and I think the New Yorker is very good for American news. So if you're interested in America and you're also interested in like arts and culture, then I would really recommend the New Yorker. But again, a magazine is totally not necessary. I just wanted to say, like, it's totally not necessary. I personally find it very useful, and I enjoy reading them. I enjoy having a coffee and just like sitting and reading a magazine, which is sort of like a digest of current affairs. Like, once I've edited this video, I'm going to sit and read this one. But of course it's up to you, and I'm aware that they're not the cheapest, but if you want to go for cheap news, then obviously there are news outlets that don't have a paywall, and there are also news outlets like the Times that do student subscriptions. So definitely look into student subscriptions if you're still in education, because that makes news a lot more accessible. And I would really recommend the Times for news, because the app is very easy to navigate, and it does just give you the key information on things that are happening each day. Times has recently released a radio, has started a radio station called the Times Radio. There's also BBC Radio 4. Those are the two that I tend to listen to the most. I find those really nice to kind of like, I don't know, when I'm in the car and I'm driving, I tend to like to listen to music, because sometimes you just want a break, right, which I'll get onto later. But they're nice because they do interviews with people, they go more in depth into stories, and they're kind of nice to dip in and out of. You know, you're not going to get all of your information from the news, but in the morning my Alexa wakes me up with Times Radio playing, and that means that in the morning at 7 AM I get all the headlines. Like, as I'm literally just lying there, I can just digest the key headlines of the morning, which I really like. And you can also use your flash news briefing if you've got an Alexa, because you can just be like, Alexa, give me my flash news briefing, and it will tell you all the key headlines as well, usually from Sky News actually, which I found out when I went to work at Sky News that they were the people that did that, which is really cool. One news source that I do swear by, and like I don't know if I could actually like live without now, are podcasts. I subscribe to so many podcasts on Spotify, whether it's the little daily briefing ones, which are really useful for, like, you know, again, as I said, if you just want a quick update of what's going on at lunchtime or something, to the sort of long form analysis ones. I absolutely love The Daily by the New York Times. I like the Today podcast by Vox, I think it is. Let me actually get up all the podcasts that I like, because I have so many recommendations. Podcasts are absolutely fabulous because you can do it while you're working out, you can do it while you're cleaning, you can do it while you're in the shower, and it just gives you, again, in-depth analysis to things that you find really interesting, or a quick overview of all of the things from the day. So let me tell you some of the podcasts that I subscribe to. So The Intelligence by The Economist is really good. Again, it kind of does overlap with the magazine a bit, but I really like the analysis of those. The Daily, as I said, by New York Times. Pod Save America is really good. Stories of Our Times by The Times. Today in Focus by The Guardian that's my favourite podcast, I think. I love Today in Focus. Yeah, Today Explained, Worldly, All Out Politics. Coffee House Shots by The Spectator is really good. Again, because you like varying your perspectives a little bit. The Red Box Politics podcast by The Times, Americano by The Spectator. These are all ones that I kind of dip in and out of. Basically in the morning I will just, and the Americast by BBC. I love the Americast by BBC. There are so many. But basically in the morning I can just sort of like go on my podcasts and be like, are there any that I really fancy listening to today? If you study German as well, then Zeit Online do really good podcasts. OK America is their American podcast, and I love that because it allows me to listen to American news, which is something that I'm really interested in, but also whilst practicing my German. And also Das Politikteil, which is their politics podcast. Today they've done one that says, oh Boris, basically what's gone wrong with Boris, which is actually like quite a lol. And that's an hour long. So I personally prefer shorter podcasts just because I don't have the attention span to listen to an hour of analysis / the time to listen to an hour of analysis. But I would really, really recommend podcasts. It's a really digestible way of keeping informed and going into issues that you care more about whilst doing other things. But me having said all of that, I want to stress how important it is to like not check the news sometimes. So I personally really value days just taken away from it, and I have also really limited the amount of news notifications that I get. So as I said, I only check the news at certain times. Of course it's important to be on the pulse if you are working and your job is literally to be on the pulse, but if you are not a journalist who is literally, you know, on call, on the job, checking TweetDeck frantically for any new stories, then checking it at certain times of the day is really important. I like to think of it like this. You know, when you're on your phone all day, every day, and it makes you feel like rubbish, and you feel like you're getting a lot of notifications because you're on it all the time. But then you actually take a day off your phone and then you turn it back on and you realise that you actually didn't really get that many notifications. It's only because you were on it that you were getting the feeling that there were lots of notifications. The same thing kind of goes for news. If you check the news 3 times a day, you really aren't going to miss anything. If you're checking it constantly, yeah, you'll be really in the loop, but like, really? You could be more time efficient by just checking it 3 times a day, or just once a day, or twice a day, whatever works better for you. And I would really recommend taking like a couple of days, you know, every month or so where you don't check the news. When I go on holiday, I don't check the news. Like when I'm having a bed duvet day, I don't check the news. You can have a break from it. Of course it's important to stay in the know, but also it's important to look after yourself and your mental health as well. So make sure you strike a nice balance, and I would really recommend turning off any sort of non-essential notifications. Like, I have breaking news on, but I found that constantly getting notifications about news stories was like really overwhelming and just really just not good for my brain. I'd rather check and find them myself, you know? So that is kind of all of my tips on how to stay up to date with the news. I hope that this did help. I feel like, I'm not sure if this video was like really self-explanatory, but I do feel like sometimes it can feel quite overwhelming, like you don't really know where to start when it comes to keeping informed. And over lockdown I've really been trying to sort of like hone my news consumption to sort of something that's very sustainable, but also means that I'm very in the know about things, and I've really find like I've started to get a nice balance, so I thought I would share it with you guys. Again, thank you so much to Blinkist for sponsoring this video. I do really like their service. I think it's such a cool idea, especially if you're really busy and you want to just get the key information. So again, I will put the link and everything that you need down in the description. If you go to blinkist.com/Bennett, you can go and check it out. So if you guys have any ideas of videos that you would like to go in this series, I already have a list in mind, but if you have any videos of sort of like how to get into journalism that you want me to do, that I feel qualified to give some sort of advice on. As I said, I'm not a professional, again, I'm not a journalist, like, yeah, I don't work at a big news organisation, but I can try and give some advice on how to sort of start out, then do let me know. And I really hope you enjoyed this video. I actually really enjoyed filming it. It's really nice being able to talk about things that I really care about. Not that I don't care about studying, but like it's nice to sort of have that passion for something come through in a video. So yeah, I'll see you very soon with another video. Bye guys. Mwah.